Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to continue on creating our multiple robot cell. So in the previous video, we set up a couple tables with 3 different scenarios where we have a box, and then we set up a simple robot in which we have a pickup and a place. So running our main program from previous videos. And then we have a drop off. Okay, so just a couple things we got to fix first. We want to make sure that the visible of our table here, we don't want it visible at runtime because we're going to be placing it. Same thing here. Let's turn off the visibility at runtime. So now that we have our visibility off at runtime, we can run it again and it should disappear. And now we have our single box. So once we pick it up, and these are all programs we created from the previous video, release, and then we have our box that pops up again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our robot. So under the controllers, robot controllers, click and then right click. We're going to add robot and then we're going to add robot clone. Now if you want to bring in a separate robot or a robot that is not cloned from the first one, then you would do a single robot serialized wizard. So we're going to go to add robot clone. And we're going to base it off of our original, which is robot controller 1. Here's the increment in which we're going to place it off. X, there's nothing going to be in the forward. We want it off to the right hand side. 1000 is perfectly fine. So number of controllers we're going to add, so we can add multiple robots in a row if we choose to. So we're going to just create one robot and we're going to hit OK. And then it's going to start cloning the robot. It will take a little while to do. So I'm going to just pause the video here while it's cloning. There we go. So now we have a clone of our robot. And if you notice how we have robot controller number 1, controller number 2, and look at controller number 2, it has all our original programs that we created. Alright, so now let's go through and start teaching the main points for our second robot. So I'm going to turn on the teach pendant. Right now we are on controller number 2, and notice how it says controller number 2 up here as well. And if I go to our data set, here's our speed. If I go to my position registers, here's my position register, here's my home, and just make sure that we are at home, we can go shift move to, and it moves to exact position because that's home. And if our tool offset is all good as well, here's going to be our pickup, so we're going to need to reteach that pickup position. Now because it is be directly over this, it should be the same exact position because it's all based off of the world view of our robot and it's in the exact same place on the left hand side. Everything is very equal and symmetrical on this, but just for the sake of if it's not, all you have to do is just go in here and reteach. So we just double click our object here and then we can go with our robot controller number 2, move to, and now we have moved to that position, close that out, and then let's just reteach that. So shift record. So now this has been recorded. Then let's do that for our other side. So let's go to the box, make sure this says our robot controller number 2, move to, there we go. And then let's reset our drop off. So we're going to shift record. Now that position has been recorded. Next, let's update the simulation pickup. So we're going to go to the drop off and the pickup. So let's do the pickup first. So we're going to right click, teach program. And then here's our pickup program. So we're going to pick up the box from table number 2 with legs. And we're going to pick it up with our end of arm tooling number 1. Now just to make sure that we don't get confused between the two, why don't we rename these so that we have robot 1 and robot 2. So this is all good. So I'm going to just close out of there. And we go to our actual robot here and find the U tool. I'm going to double click it. And then here is the general name. So we're going to go general and we call this robot 2 tooling. Copy that. And then we go back up to robot controller number 1 and find my tooling under there. I switch back to robot number 1. So robot number 1 here. And we go inside here and under general and we call this robot number 1 tooling. Then we go back onto our robot number 2. And I'm going to go to that pickup And notice how it now says robot number 2, so we don't have to redo anything. So just makes things a little bit easier and less likely so we're not going to mess up. So let's go do the drop off then. Right click, teach program, and go to the drop off. So we're dropping off the box from robot number 2 tooling to table 3. So table with legs number 3. So from the box, we're going to drop it off with our robot, and then we're going to drop it onto the actual table. So now that those are good, we just need to teach one more program or one more spot inside of here, which is going to be that circle portion. So I'm going to go to my select, and I'm going to go to my main program. And then I'm going to teach that position up top here. So if I click coordinate and go to tool, there's my tool. I'm going to go up my 300, and then I'm going to go over my 500. And from the previous video, we went up 200. So we go up 200, and now we're at that position. Just to make sure that we're at that position, we're going to just retouch this up. So we go shift touch up, enter frame number, and we want to make sure that we're in the correct user frame. So let's go into the user frame area. So I'm going to go menu, setup, frames, and let's go set IND. We're going to make sure that we're in frame number 1. And then let's go to other, user frame, and then set IND, enter frame number 1. So we have both number 1s on. Let's go edit, and then let's go shift touch up. And now we're touched up, make sure everything is good. Let's now get a way of communicating between robot and robot. And there's multiple ways of doing this. The easiest being the digital out to a digital in. So if you only need to say, hey, I'm in position, or hey, I am out of position, or I'm dropping off, I'm going to release, digital ins and digital outs work perfectly fine. You can also do a serial port, and you can also do an Ethernet port. Those do require more knowledge in the robot system, so in this video we're going to do a digital in and digital out to communicate between the robots. And this is the same way you can communicate between a robot and an actual PLC, or a robot and an actual machine, whether it's CNC lathe or CNC mill. So there's multiple ways of doing this. We're going to go up to cell, and inside cell there's IO connections, so ins and outs connections. And inside here, this is where we're going to tell the computer which digital ins, digital outs we're going to utilize. So we're going to add, so we're going to go number of ports. Here we're going to have output device from robot controller 1, digital 1 we're going to utilize, to robot controller number 2, and it'll be a digital in, so that's perfectly fine. Let's go add again, and this time we're going to communicate back from our robot controller number 2 to robot controller number 1. So now that we have that, you'll see that that red goes away because we're not multiplying our different items. So I'm going to add another one just to make sure. So we're going to go digital number 1. We're going to go digital number 2. And this is going to be my second port. Second port. That's communicating to number 2. Second port. And then our second port here for controller number 1. And everything should turn off red then. So from our robot controller, digital output number 1 goes to our digital number 2. So digital input number 2 on robot controller number 2. Robot controller number 2 goes to digital input number 1. And then we go to robot controller number 1, digital input 1. So we're just doing 2 different outputs and inputs. And we can always add more later if we need to. So we're going to hit apply, and okay, so now we have digital ports number 1 and number 2. So let's go in here and name them. So let's go ins and outs, and let's go to our type, and we're going to go to digital, and we're going to go under digital number 1. So we're going to arrow over, and we're going to go to detail. So in the comment area, let's name it what it is. We'll call that A. Go back to previous, so that's talk to robot 1, and then here let's add the detail. And then let's go previous, so we talk to robot 1, and then let's go to the ins and outs, arrow over, let's go to the ins. So that's talking to robot 1. Let's go to the outs here, and let's go to details. So that's talk to robot 1. Spell things right. Talk to robot. So digital outs will talk, and then digital ins will reply or listen to robot 1. So we should go back to input here, and then let's change these. And this is listen to robot 1. So now that we have controller 1, let's do the same thing for controller 2. So what we can do is just double click this, or we could double click the robot, or up here we can switch between the controllers. So if I go controller 1, brings up controller 1, and I go back under IOs, I'm going to do the exact same thing as we did with our robot number 2. So I'm going to just pause it here and add it to our controller number 1. It'll just be talking to robot number 2. Alright, so digital inputs, listen to robot 2A, listen to robot 2B, and I'm going to go back to my out. So this is talk to 2A and talk to 2B. So now let's go into our actual program and update it. We're going to go select and then our main program. And then under the variables, we're going to reset a few of the variables. So let's insert a few lines. So add a command, insert 2 lines, and let's add our digitals. So digital 1 is going to be off in the beginning, and then we're going to do digital output number 2 is also going to be off. So there we're talking to robot 2A, talk to robot 2B. So both of these are off. Okay, next we're going to come down all the way to the bottom, and we're going to insert a few lines. Command, insert 4 lines. And then we're going to now tell the robot that we placed our object and we are out of the way because we're at the home. So after we're at home, we're going to then call our digital output number 1, and we're going to turn this on. So once we're on, it's going to tell the robot that, hey, we're out of the way because we're at the home position. Now you can come in and pick up. And I just inserted a line, and then I added a comment here of ready for pickup. So digital 1, and now we're going to have it loop back. So we're going to new instruction, and we're going to jump label to number 1. And I'm going to move all the way up to the top. And we insert a few lines. And we new instruction, miscellaneous. And I'm going to call this label number 1. Okay, so it's going to loop through label number 1. So in the beginning, it's going to refuse on this. Then it's going to frames, variables, going to reset them as off. Coming down, doing normal program, all the way to our ready for pickup, which turns it on. Then it jumps back up to label number 1, in which is going to turn them off again. So we're going to have a little wait here first. So I'm going to go insert a wait as well. So wait of 1 second, just to make sure that the program jumps and starts again. Now we can probably turn that down just a little bit, but it's just enough time to allow this to kick on, and then it'll run through the program. So now let's go into robot controller number 2. And I'm going to go into that program, main program. And we'll insert a few in the beginning. Say like 6 for now. And the first area is going to be our loop. Call it wait for loop. Robot number 1 loop. So we're going to do instruction, and we're going to do a label number 1. And then we're going to add an if statement here. So go new instruction, if statement. So we're going to if equal to. So we're going to look at a digital input, and from our other robot, it was digital output number 1, which is equal to digital input number 1 on this side. So we're going to go digital input number 1, which is listen to robot A. And if that is on, we're going to jump to label 2. If this is, we're going to continuously run through this over and over again. We're going to add just a tiny little wait so it's not eating up processor time like crazy. So we're going to go say 0.1 seconds. And then we're going to do a jump to label 1. So jump label 1. So it's going to loop through here, constantly loop, 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 and wait for that digital input to become 1 or on. And then it's going to jump to label 2. And then once it's in label 2, this is where we're going to start label 2. So we're going to insert a few lines here. And then we're going to add our label 2 here. Jump. So it's going to jump out of this loop and start into here. And once we're done with that, then we're going to be going through all these, shift all the way down to the bottom. And then we're going to now insert a few lines down here. And we're going to now jump to label 1. So it's calling home, new instruction, and then we're going to jump to label 1. Okay, since we're out. Now it's always going to wait for this robot to get out of the way, but if you want to communicate between each of the robots, then you're going to have to use digital 1 and digital 2 back and forth. So let's go to robot controller number 1 and let's try this out. So under robot number 1, let's reset any faults, go under edit, and let's make sure we're under the main program. Now before we run this, we want to make sure that both of the main programs are ready. So I'm going to just go edit, make sure it says the main program. So let's go select, find the main, enter, and make sure it says main. So I'm going to just go function abort all just to make sure. And then let's go into robot controller number 2, make sure the main program is up and running on this one as well in the background. So we're going to go to edit, and notice how it says the pickup robot number 11. Let's go to select and find the main program. And just like before, let's go function abort all just to make sure everything is good. So then I'm going to go back to robot number 1, and we're going to run these two programs together. Edit, make sure that is up and running, and let's go run. Okay, so we have something that's not being picked up right now and dropped off. So we're going to have to fix that. So we may have to change this to box number 1 and box number 2. Let's add another box. So inside here, we're going to duplicate this. So we're going to copy box, and then I'm going to paste box number 1. So now we have 2 boxes. So I'm going to go inside here, and I'm going to double click our item right here. Go to parts, and we're going to go box number 1. And then I'm going to go to simulation and hit apply. So now we see box number 1 and box number 2. So box number 1 we're going to allow to be placed, and we're going to destroy it. And then box number 1, allow it to be picked, and we're going to have a little create after a few seconds. So we're going to have to dial this in to see how long it takes for everything to pop in. So we'll say about 3 seconds we're going to start with, and then we'll dial it in from there. And we hit OK. So now that we have our boxes, let's make sure that they are the exact same place as well. So it looks like we're not in the same place right now. So if I go inside here again, so go to parts, and then box number 1 is 200 and negative 90. So if I go here, let's match that. 200 and negative 90. Hit apply. And now that is going to be in the wrong spot because it should be under the Y component, not the X component. 0 and then 200. There we go. So now we match. So we're going to turn the visibility off at runtime, and it's going to reappear after a few seconds. So allow it to be placed, destroy after 1 minute here, and then this one's going to be allowed to be picked, create after so much time. So that's going to be that 3 seconds. So when we hit apply, and we'll hit OK, and we're going to do the same thing over here, but this time we're going to just change it to number 1. So I'm going to double click this, and let's go to parts, and we're going to go to box number 1, uncheck box number here, hit apply, and then we're going to edit this, so it's going to be 200 and then -90 to put in place. And then visible at runtime, we're going to turn off, and then simulation, we're going to click box number 1, and we're going to be allowed to be placed. And then we're going to destroy it after, say, 4 seconds. Hit OK. So now we're going to have our items. Now we need to go to the actual robot. So let's go to position, and let's go to robot controller number 2. So we're going to go robot controller. And then we're going to go to our home position, which is 0s and -90. There's our position. Let's go into our, and then we're going to go to our parts, and we're going to just match these, which is 90 and 185. So we have 90 and 185, so that's all good. Box number 1, so that's good. Just need to reteach our simulation drop off and pick up. And we're going to go to teach program, and our drop off is going to be box number 1 from our tool onto our table number 3. And then let's go to pickup program, right click, teach program, and we're going to pick up box number 1 from our leg number 2 with our tooling number 2. So now that that's all updated, let's just make sure we get the timing down. Alright, so when I was running this, I noticed that when it was trying to pick up with the robot number 2, it was not picking up the actual box, and it looks like the reason why is because when I created this, it somehow created a teach-pendant version of the pickup program versus a simulation program. So we're going to go to the actual simulation one, and this is the one we're going to do. So pickup program there, and then we're going to do call pickup program number 2, which is the simulation. Same thing with the drop-off. So if I go to the drop-off program, here's a drop-off program, same thing, call the simulation program, not the actual teach-pendant program for picking up and dropping off our devices. So let's go to our main program, get this all set. So there's our main program. Let's make sure that this is in home position, which it is. Let's go to robot number 1. Let's make sure that this one is in the home position as well, so everything starts out correct, and then we can see how this thing works. So move to, and we also want to make sure that this says main up here as well. So let's run this and see where we're at. So the timing's a little bit off, but the main thing is we're going to try to make sure that this is going to pick it up now. It does. And then it places. So now we just need to get the timing down. Now after your simulation is done, your robots may not be at home, so instead of changing each one of these to home, we can set up a parameter up here. And let's go to run configuration. And let's go to configuration number 3. We're going to go to user defined. So now we're going to actually define which one we want to do. So we're going to go home and then home for each one of these. So we're going to run the home and run the home. So we hit apply, and this is called home. So now let's go up to number 2, and up here is going to be main program. And then we're going to run selected programs, which is going to be the main and main. If it's not the main up here, then you just need to go down to user defined and switch it to main. So you could just run main, apply. So now we have our main program. So here are the different configurations we could work with now. Okay, so if we want to run our configuration number 3, both of them will now go home, and now we're at the home position. So you don't have to go 0, 0, 0, 0, 90, and then 0 again for each one time you want to run these at home. It's just a quick, easy way of doing things. Alright, so I got the perfect timing now. So if I go into the actual robot here, so box number 1 we're going to delete or destroy after 3 seconds, and then box number 1 is going to create after 6.5 seconds. Again, that's just trial and error, getting things so it's perfect, and you want to run it a couple times to make sure everything is good. So I'm going to hit OK here, and now I'm going to run this. So we're going to notice how we have our main and home. So home has already been run. Let's run our main program. So perfect destroying in between, and we'll continue running in between here. So we're going to continue messing around with this cell. We're going to make it smarter and smarter and smarter using the digital inputs and digital outputs. And if we hit stop, and if we want to go to the beginning here, all we do is run the home program, where it runs both home programs at the same time, and now we're at the home. So I'm going to save this, and next video we're going to continue messing around.